He went camping alone in the Rockies to escape the noise of the city. He pitched his tent by a quiet stream, but woke up in the middle of the night to whispering. He thought it was just the wind, until the whispers formed words. He's awake now. He ran into the night, barefoot. He never found his tent again. She was driving home late at night, through a wooded back road. Her headlights caught a woman, in white, standing by the trees. She slowed down, but the woman was suddenly right beside her car window, grinning. She didn't stop. Later, her dash cam showed nothing, just the road, but her side mirror was cracked. A young man moved into an old apartment in Chicago. On the first night, he heard knocking inside the closet. 3 knocks every night, always at 3:33 a.m. He tried ignoring it until one night he opened it. The knocking stopped, but now he hears breathing. 2 friends were hiking through an abandoned mining town. They thought it was empty until they heard music playing from one of the crumbling houses. A phonograph was spinning, no electricity, playing a song from the 1930s. They ran. When they looked back, someone was waving at them from the attic. A woman visiting her grandmother's grave felt something cold wrap around her ankle. When she looked down, there were no vines, no hands, no ropes, just a small handprint in the dirt beside her foot. He took a shortcut through the woods behind his school. The trees suddenly went quiet. No birds, no insects. That's when he saw something ahead. A figure, pale, tall, with no face. It didn't move, but when he blinked, it was closer. A babysitter heard footsteps upstairs. The kids were asleep in the living room. She checked the hallway. Nothing. Then a door slammed shut on the second floor. When she went up, every door was open, including the attic. She moved into her college dorm and found a mirror left behind by the last tenant. Every night at 4 a.m., she'd wake up and see someone standing behind her in the reflection, always in the same spot. She smashed the mirror, but now the figure appears in the window instead. A man working night shift at a gas station saw a boy enter at 2 a.m., alone, barefoot, wearing pajamas. The boy didn't speak, just pointed to the bathroom. When the man checked on him minutes later, the stall was empty. The boy was never seen leaving on the camera feed. While visiting family in Mexico, a girl went outside to take a phone call. She wandered near the river. That's when she heard sobbing, low, painful, a woman crying, "Ms. Rios." She ran back to the house. Her aunt locked the door and whispered, "Don't ever go near the river at night again." During a thunderstorm, a man looked out his window and saw someone standing in his yard, staring up at him. The rain was pouring, but the figure wasn't wet, just standing perfectly still. He blinked, and the figure was now right outside the window. A teenager exploring a burned-down asylum took photos for fun. Later, he noticed a shadowy figure in the background of every image, getting closer each time. The last photo? Just his own terrified face, with a hand on his shoulder. A couple on a road trip stopped at a deserted diner. The waitress never blinked. The other customers didn't speak. When they left, they looked back, and the diner was gone. Just a field of grass. Nothing had ever been there. In the middle of the night, a woman heard her dog barking violently downstairs. When she came down, the dog was staring at the front door, growling. She opened the door. No one was there, but there were wet footprints on the floor leading into the house. He stayed in a cheap motel off the highway. The clerk told him to avoid room 6. Curious, he peeked inside. It was empty, but the walls were covered in writing. Just one word, over and over, "Stay." That night, he heard banging from the other side of his wall. He had the end room. A hiker got lost in the mountains and stumbled upon a cave. Inside were hundreds of candles, still burning. No one was around. He left, marking the path with rope. The next day, he returned with park rangers. The cave was gone. A girl working the closing shift at a bookstore was shelving books when one fell behind her. Then another, then 10, all from the same section, paranormal. She thought it was a prank, until a voice whispered in her ear, "Found you." A boy swears that every night, at exactly 2:59 a.m., his bedroom door creaks open. His parents think it's just the wind, But one night, he stayed awake with his phone camera ready. The video shows the door open and a long shadow crawl in. While driving through Nevada desert at night, a man saw someone standing in the middle of the road. He swerved and nearly crashed. When he looked back, the figure was gone. But dusty handprints appeared on his windshield. From the inside, she visited a friend's cabin deep in the woods. On the third night, she saw someone standing at the edge of the trees. The figure didn't move, didn't blink, just watched. The next morning, there were footprints leading up to the cabin door, but never away from it. Outro, whispering fades in under music. If you're ever alone, and the air suddenly turns cold, if you hear footsteps but see no one, if you feel like something's watching you, don't wait to find out what it is. Because not everyone gets out, and those who do never forget. She was home alone, doing laundry in the basement. The light flickered, then died. In the silence, she heard someone whisper her name from the corner. Soft, familiar, wrong. She ran upstairs, heart racing. Later, she remembered. No one in her house knew her full name. He worked nights as a hospital janitor. In the abandoned wing, he once saw a woman in scrubs walking ahead of him. He called out, she didn't turn. When he followed, she walked through a closed metal door. Security footage showed him talking to no one. A group of college friends rented a remote cabin in the mountains. The first night, they heard heavy footsteps on the roof. They laughed it off until they found muddy boot prints inside the living room the next morning. None of them had gone outside. She received a call from her sister at 3:21 a.m. Her sister's voice whispered, "Don't open the door." 30 seconds later, there was knocking, loud, urgent. But her sister had died in a car crash 3 days earlier. He was exploring an old battlefield for a history project. He found an antique dog tag buried in the mud. That night, he heard marching outside his window, boots on pavement. When he checked, there was no one, but the dog tag had vanished from his desk. A teenager snuck into an abandoned school to film a TikTok. While recording, a locker behind him slammed shut. He laughed, thinking it was the wind, until he reviewed the footage. There was a pale hand holding the edge of the locker door. Late one night, a nurse passed by a patient's room that had been empty for weeks. The light was on. She glanced in and saw a child sitting on the bed, crying softly. When she stepped in to help, the room was completely dark, empty, cold. He moved into an old Victorian home and found a crawl space behind a bookshelf. Inside were dozens of dusty dolls, all facing the same direction. At night, he'd hear soft footsteps in the ceiling. One morning, all the dolls returned to face the entrance. She used an old Polaroid camera at a family picnic. The photos developed normally, except for one. It showed her standing alone in the woods. She doesn't remember taking it. She doesn't remember leaving the group, but she still has the picture. A truck driver stopped at a gas station in the middle of nowhere. While filling up, he saw a man standing by the tree lean, motionless, staring. When he went inside, the cashier was pale. "You saw him, didn't you?" she whispered. "He only shows up before crashes." After a long day, she got into her rideshare. The driver greeted her by name before she said anything. That's strange, she thought. Then her phone buzzed. "Your driver's arriving now." She asked the man to stop. He didn't. She jumped out at a red light. He worked in a morgue and occasionally heard laughter echoing through the halls at night. One evening, while alone, the elevator came down on its own. When it opened, a stretcher rolled out, empty. No one had called it. No one was on shift. And the elevator was unplugged from maintenance. A family adopted a rescue dog from a shelter. Every night at 3 a.m., it would stand at the top of the stairs and growl into the darkness. One night, the father checked what it was growling at. In the hallway mirror, he saw something standing behind him, but when he turned, nothing was there. She volunteered to stay late at the museum. As she locked up the Egyptian exhibit, she noticed sand scattered on the floor near a sealed sarcophagus. The next morning, the security cameras showed her walking out of the museum at 2:44 a.m., but she has no memory of ever leaving. Two hunters stayed overnight in a remote forest cabin. At 2 a.m., they heard scratching on the walls, slow, deliberate. Thinking it was an animal, they opened the door. Nothing was there, but the scratches were now coming from inside the cabin. A man kept receiving voicemails with nothing but static, same number every time. One day he answered. A voice whispered, "Why did you leave me there?" He hadn't heard that voice since he was a child, since the night his brother disappeared in the woods. She stayed at a friend's house for the weekend. In the guest room was a large wardrobe that creaked at night. The final night, she woke up to it wide open. Inside, she saw someone smiling at her. Her friend swore the wardrobe had been nailed shut years ago. He was lost while driving and ended up on a one-lane gravel road. The deeper he went, the more fog surrounded the car. His GPS stopped working. Then out of the fog came a sign, "Turn around, don't look back." When he finally got out, there were fingernail scratches on the trunk. A boy claimed his imaginary friend lived in the attic. The parents played along. Until one day, they found drawings, hundreds of them, of a tall man with hollow eyes. The last drawing showed the man standing next to the boy's bed. She dreamed every night of a man watching her from the foot of her bed. Same face, same eyes, night after night. She sketched him to show a friend. Her friend's face turned pale. "I've seen him too," she whispered, "but not in my dreams in my hallway." Oyutaro, slow piano motif, quiet echoing breath sounds beneath. They say fear is in the mind. But what if it isn't? These are the stories people try to forget, but the shadows always remember. Be careful where you go. And if you hear something, whisper your name. Don't answer. Just run. Never go alone. She was house-sitting for her aunt when the doorbell rang at 2:41 a.m. Through the peephole, no one was there. But as she turned to walk away, the bell rang again and again, rapid, violent, desperate. She looked out the window. A face was pressed to glass, smiling. He worked construction near a wooded area and saw a child standing at the edge of the trees every morning at dawn. Same place, same blank expression. One day he waved. The child waved back, with two hands, one of which wasn't his. She received a letter in her mailbox with no stamp and no return address. Inside was a single photo of her sleeping, taken from outside her bedroom window. Her bedroom was on the 3rd floor. A couple bought an antique mirror at an estate sale. Soon, they both started having the same dream, of someone watching them from the mirror, face hidden in shadow. One morning, the wife found her husband standing in front of it, unblinking. Hours had passed. He didn't remember getting out of bed. He lived in a high-rise apartment and often heard tapping on the window at night, but he was on the 15th floor. One night, he recorded the sound. When he played it back, it wasn't tapping. It was whispering, a voice repeating, "Let me in." She found an old voicemail on her phone from an unknown number. The voice was her own, screaming. They moved into a fixer-upper with a basement sealed by a rusted padlock. After breaking it open, they found walls covered in children's handprints and a mattress. That night, they heard crying coming from below. No children lived nearby. A man camping in the desert saw lights in the sky, bright, silent, unnatural. Then his watch stopped. His phone died. For 5 hours, he remembers nothing, but his boots were full of sand and his tent was zipped from the outside. She worked at a hotel where room 407 was always blocked off. No bookings, no staff entry. One night, she saw the door wide open. Inside, a woman stood perfectly still, facing the corner. When she blinked, the door slammed shut. It was locked again. The room hasn't been opened in years. He began hearing breathing in his walk-in closet, low, raspy, animal-like. One night, he left a phone recording inside. The next morning, he played it back. It started with silence and ended with his own voice whispering, "I'm still here." A friend dared her to do a Ouija board alone in an abandoned church. She asked, "Is anyone here with me?" The planchette moved to yes. "Do you want to hurt me?" It didn't move. But when she packed up to leave, her car doors were all unlocked. She never unlocked them. He was alone in a cabin when he saw headlights pull up. No one knocked, just a single car idling. Then it turned off. He waited, watching from the window. But when he opened the door in the morning, the car was gone. Yet the ground showed no tire tracks. She downloaded an unknown app that appeared on her phone. No name, no icon. When she opened it, the screen went black, and her camera activated. A voice said, "Smile, I see you now." The app disappeared. But now, her front camera flickers every night at the same time. He volunteered at a retirement home and met a quiet old woman who always spoke to her reflection. One day, he asked who she was talking to. She replied, "She's not my reflection. She's the one who never left." A night security guard working at a mall kept seeing movement on the monitors, store mannequins shifting positions. He reviewed the footage. One mannequin moved an inch every hour, closer to the camera. Then it blinked. She took a photo of the sky during a storm. Lightning flashed, and in the image behind the clouds was a face. A perfect human face, looking down. The original file vanished from her phone that same night. He found a VHS tape labeled Play ME inside a drawer of his new home. It showed footage of someone standing outside his house, watching from different angles for hours. The final frame was taken from inside. She always heard footsteps upstairs at night, though she lived alone in a one-story house. After visiting a haunted cornfield attraction, a teenager found straw in his shoes and hay in his bed. The next morning, words were scratched into his mirror. "You never left." He joined an online forum about dreams. Someone was posting identical dreams to his. Same imagery, same voices, same messages. He messaged them. They replied, "You're not dreaming. I'm trying to wake you up." OUDRO, slow fading heartbeat, silence creeping in. You made it through, or maybe you're still there, still in the dark. These stories are real, and they don't end just because you stop listening. Lock your door, check your closet, and remember, never go alone. She was spending the weekend at a friend's lake house. No neighbors for miles. On the second night, she heard someone whispering her name outside. When she looked out, she saw her reflection, standing on the water. He worked the overnight shift at a self-storage facility. One night, motion sensors were triggered in Unit 33. The unit had been empty for over 2 years. When he checked the footage, he saw the door slowly opening and a figure crawling out backwards. She found a diary buried in her backyard. The last entry read, "If you're reading this, it's already seen you." She burned the book, but at night, her walls now whisper her name. He was driving cross-country and stopped to rest at a roadside motel. At 3 a.m., he woke to someone sitting on the edge of the bed. In the darkness, he asked, "Who's there?" The voice replied, "You checked in, but you never checked out." She started getting texts from her deceased mother's number. First just blank messages, then photos of her sleeping. A little girl in an old neighborhood used to say goodnight to the man in the ceiling. Her parents thought it was just imagination until they had a leak repaired and found a mattress, clothes, and food wrappers in the attic above her room. He worked in a movie theater where the projection room hadn't been used in years. One night, the old projector turned on by itself and played a reel no one recognized. The film showed empty seats, but one by one, shadows started to fill them. She began having dreams of being buried alive. She'd wake up gasping for air, clawing at her sheets. Then one night, she woke up outside, in her backyard, in a hole, with dirt on her hands. He took a shortcut through an alley and heard a soft giggle. When he turned, he saw a small child facing the wall. As he walked past, the child whispered, "Don't let them take your face." He ran. When he looked back, the child was gone, but his reflection in a window was smiling. A couple bought an old grandfather clock. Every night at 1:13 a.m., it chimed 13 times. One night, it didn't. That was the night someone broke in and tried to take them both. She started seeing numbers scratched into her walls, random at first. Then she realized they were GPS coordinates. When she followed them, they led to a tree deep in the forest. Hanging from the branches were dozens of shoes, all children's sizes. He worked as a wildlife photographer and set up motion-activated trail cams. One camera caught a figure standing in front of the lens for 6 hours, unmoving, watching, but it never appeared in the infrared. She always felt uneasy walking past her bathroom mirror. One night, she saw herself blink before she did. He received a letter addressed to the last one. Inside was a photo of his old high school class, with everyone's face scratched out, except his. During a thunderstorm, a family lost power. They lit candles and played board games. Then they noticed an extra chair pulled up to the table. No one remembered doing it, but the chair was wet. She checked into an Airbnb in the countryside. Harmless, cozy, until she found a second guest log hidden under the sink. The last message read, "If you hear footsteps above you, get out. This place has no second floor." He noticed a small door behind the drywall in his basement. Inside, there were pictures of his family, taken from angles inside their home. She worked in an office tower where elevators had a reputation. One night, riding alone, the elevator stopped on the 13th floor, officially a floor that didn't exist. The doors opened to darkness and breathing. He was camping alone and heard a child crying near the tree lean. He called out, but no one answered. The crying got closer, then stopped. In the silence, he heard something whisper, "That's not your voice." She lived across the street from a cemetery. Every night, her motion light turned on. She finally installed a camera. The next morning, the footage showed someone standing in her yard, pointing at her window for 7 straight hours. OUDRO, distant church bell, gentle static rising, music fading into nothingness. You listen, you made it, but something else was listening too. These stories don't always stay on the page. Some of them follow you home. If the lights flicker, if the mirror fogs, if you hear something calling your name tonight, don't answer, don't turn around. And whatever you do, never go alone.